Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Laden Yuracek.
Welcome to another Toronto Rehab Week 2019 Spotlight interview presented by IFAS, the International Functional Electrical Stimulation Society. Thanks to them for sponsoring these episodes. In this episode, we're talking to Florian Haufe, a PhD candidate in Robert Reiner's lab at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Actually, it's very cool because they were able to put together something called a Cybathlon in 2016. This is a unique event where people living with various disabilities compete using the latest developments in everyday assistive devices. So it's kind of the Olympics of neurostimulation devices by those that actually need them. So Florian Haufe was able to sit down with us, and he fills us in a little bit about what happened in the 2016 competition and what to expect in the 2020 competition. This was a really cool episode, and I hope to join in 2020.
So here we are at Rehab Week in the exhibit floor. We're at the Cybathlon booth, and we're here with Florian Haufe. Florian, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you got involved with this event?
Thanks, Jen. So I'm a graduate student at the lab of Robert Reiner, who is the founder and initiator of Cybathlon. And I'm working on the human-robot interaction wearable robotics, but I'm also the head of discipline for the exoskeleton races in Cybathlon.
What is the Cybathlon? Jen was telling me about it, but she just said it's really cool. So what is it?
It is a competition for people with impairments. They use assistive technology to compete in everyday life races.
So it's the Olympics for technology, right?
That's right.
Is that the way to describe it?
We're really trying to put together a scenario where people can show what they can do with their different devices, be it arm prostheses, leg prostheses, powered wheelchairs, powered exoskeletons, brain-computer interfaces, or functional electric stimulation for bike racing, for example.
So you have a whole display here of the different disciplines. It's almost like you have different categories like they have at the Paralympic Games or at the Olympic Games. Can you just go into each one of those disciplines and just give us a quick description of the different, these aren't just disciplines, these are competitions, right?
That's right. And each competition has a set of tasks that is challenging, but also relevant for everyday life. So it should be representative of what people are facing as obstacles when they're at home, when they're out and about, and challenges that they can solve with the help of the devices they use. And I'm most familiar with the exoskeleton race, obviously.
Sure.
But let's just take this as an example. We have, for example, sit-to-stand transfers, where you have to sit down on a typical low couch, which can be difficult if you are a person with spinal cord injury. And that is something that you start with. And then you have to walk across uneven terrain, which can be a real obstacle. And then you have to climb stairs, open a door, maneuver through a small space that could be any entrance to a shop, for example, walk over a ramp, and just do many things that can be hard in everyday life, but can be achieved if you have a good match between your device and your capabilities.
Is there a certain time limit that you have to do it, or whoever does it the fastest wins, or what is it?
So in general, we start by scoring the task completeness. So if you get over the obstacle, you get a number of points. But then when two pilots have a similar point score, we will count who is fastest, and that will be the winner in the end.
Wow.
It is, yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about the first one you had? The first one you had was in 2016.
So again, very similar to the Olympic Games, we're running on a 4-year periodic timeline. And 2016 was eye-opening for us because it became way bigger than I guess we even hoped it would be. And we had a lot of international competitors, both from industry and from academia, which we thought was particularly nice, and a lot of visibility and media coverage. And it was broadcasted on Swiss national TV live, and we had CNN, BBC, some major news outlets there. One picture from Cybathlon 2016 was in that 10 pictures of the year BBC summary. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they summarized the year, everything that happened on the world in 10 pictures, and we made it as one of those pictures.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
It was just awesome to see also on a personal level how people were emotional about winning races, or even when they became second place, for example, how much they appreciated that competition with like-minded people, pilots in those races.
How many attendees or how many athletes were there and how many spectators would you guess?
So we had, again, 6 disciplines, and I believe it was also 16 pilots per discipline, maybe 12. This next edition, 2020, it will be 16 for sure per discipline. And spectators are in the ballpark of 5,000 people who attended the event.
Wow.
And then, of course, many more on television and live streams we had on YouTube and such.
That's incredible.
So I think one of the unique things about this, if you can describe it a little bit more, are the teams that show up. So you have what you call pilots instead of athletes. Right. And then can you describe the team that's kind of built around that pilot?
So it's actually hard to describe the prototype team because they can be very different. We have teams that are fairly small. For example, a team from Russia who starts in the powered wheelchair race, and they're 2 friends. So one guy built a powered wheelchair for his friend because he couldn't walk and he didn't have an adequate means to get about. And he told me that it was just really messy because Siberian winters are tough and there's mud all over the place. And the wheelchairs that were available just wouldn't do for his friend. And he's an engineer, so he started building one. And they were doing incredibly well, for example, during what we call Cybathlon experience that we had last year at Reiner, a big trade fair in Düsseldorf. And then there are teams like the team from TU Delft and the exoskeleton race that come with 30 or 40 students who have enrolled for that project and decided to stop their studies for at least half a year or maybe even a year, I'm not sure, and just dedicate all of their time to working on that project. And that is the other extreme of the spectrum, because then they have friends and family, and then friends and family of the pilot, and it's just 40, 50 people in total that come to the race just from one team. And yeah, it's just that bandwidth of different teams that makes it so exciting and so emotional in the competition.
So what's the main goal that you're looking to get out of an event like this? Because it was a brainchild really from 2016. 2020 is going to be your second time out the gates. What's your goal for these events?
Right. So I believe there are several goals here. And one would be to give people with impairments a platform where they can compete and be involved in something like Olympic Games, like Paralympic Games, in that overall spirit, where you can actually use active assistive devices and go beyond that Paralympic thought, which we very much appreciate, but just go one step further and say, okay, we have those active devices and we can use them to do cool races and stuff like that. And that is the one goal. And the second goal would be for labs and companies to show what technology they came up with and what it can do. And then the third one would be to increase public awareness of what technology is out there, but also what special needs are out there maybe, and just do that in a fun and engaging way, I would say.
So this really kind of fills a gap that we see a lot in research, where we've been talking today at various sessions where there's researchers that have never interacted with their end user population. So this is really a direct way for those who are developing these advanced technologies to really interact with the people who are using them.
Absolutely. And I think that's a long thought of my doctoral supervisor, Professor Robert Reiner, that he really wants to bring the end user populations and the researchers in his group together and develop something that's actually meaningful for the people who might want to use it.
It's a clever way to force that interaction, to actually be like, okay, you two kiss and bring them together. That's really cool. And I mean, like kind of what you were saying, it's also a fun thing to do, because I mean, poster sessions, presentations, that's great, but that's not going to be broadcast on live television. Like, This is a fun thing that like everybody's just like, wow, this is new and novel and everything like this. So
in the spirit of competition.
In the spirit of competition. This is really cool. I really like this. I'm sold. Jen, you're absolutely right that this is a very cool...
It's a cool thing. So Florian, tell us how people can find out about it. It's in May 2nd and 3rd in 2020.
That's right.
Or if they want to join, or like how do they, let's say the TU Delft thing, it sounded like almost like a senior design project for a bachelor's or something like this.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
How do people do this? How do people convince their professor, hey, let's join this?
So I feel if you want to convince your professor to do that, just show him a video of the 2016 edition or the trailer for our new edition. And it is something that's incredibly engaging on so many levels. You'll have technical challenges, you'll learn how to work in a team, you will go through that process of iterations, eventual failure, and then in the end, be there with your pilot, with your entire team, run the race. And I can only tell from personal experience, it's awesome. So I can only recommend it to everyone. There is more information on our homepage on how to apply. There is still some open starting spots for some of the disciplines, and we do have waiting lists for the other ones. So there's still a chance to get on, even if right now we can't give a place right away.
Excellent. And you have a website. Can you describe the website and the different forms of social media that you use?
Right. So most technical information can be found on cybathlon.com. And there is a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. YouTube has cool videos if you want to check the trailer out, for example. On Instagram, we share pictures from here, for example, from the different activities we have around the world. In Japan recently, a show race of powered wheelchairs. And there's more information on LinkedIn if you want to contact us professionally. And yeah, there's many different ways.
That's really cool. So since it was so popular, why would you think about doing like a summer and then a winter version, like not every 4 years, but every 2 years or every year, if it was like very, very popular?
Right. So we're definitely thinking about how we can extend it even further. Summer and winter is probably not totally applicable for the disciplines we have, but I like the idea.
Throw somebody in a wheelchair down a snowy mountain.
Or some skiing or whatever. We're in Switzerland after all.
That's true. That's a really good point.
No, definitely. We'll have a scientific symposium surrounding this, and we're already having what we call Cybathlon series and Cybathlon experiences, which try to bridge the gap between the major events. And then I guess right now we are just keeping it on a 4-year basis, because both for the teams and for us and for the pilots, it's a lot of work to put this together and make it happen. And that's why we feel it's good to have a bit of a longer time horizon to really be able to come up with a cool device and run it in the races.
Yeah, and actually that's why the Olympics are every 4 years too. Those athletes,
right.
And they all need that time to build up their skill, build up their bodies. So this is actually no different, right?
Right.
This is really cool. This reminds me of the DARPA self-driving cars project, and the first time that it happened, it was really bad, and a lot of the winner was the one that just completed most of the thing. They didn't even complete the race. And so I'm very curious to see that progression of how much things get better over the years, over those 4 years. And I'd be very curious to see,
I'm actually too.
What kind of exponential curve is it? A strong one, a weak one, something like this.
So we kind of anticipated progress because we knew from some of the teams that they just kept pushing after the last edition. And we tried to come up with a slightly more trickier obstacles and tasks. So trying to level that out a little bit. But you never know. Maybe people just made so much progress that they just complete everything. And we had, matter of fact, already during the last edition and the exoskeleton races, people who just went through all the obstacles, no mistakes, and it was a race for time in the end. Wow. That's really impressive when you see that. And I feel based on the smaller events we had last year, we might actually see a big step forward in the competition 2020.
Wow. Yeah, so again, this is Cybathlon. It's held in Zurich. It'll be May 2nd and 3rd in 2020, and we can find out more at the cybathlon.com website.
That's right.
Florian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. It was my pleasure, Jen.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.